Hello, this is Elanda Douglas with Empowering Life After Loss. For those of you who have never tuned in to my channel, this channel was created in remembrance of my daughter, Ebony Douglas. She was 17 years old when she was killed in a car accident. My husband and I had dropped her off at school, and she was in a car accident in 12 days, and she was DOA, which for those of you who don't know what that is, she was dead on arrival. So when the police arrived to the scene, there were, I believe, 8 or 15 people in the car wreck, and everyone else walked away, but she was killed in the car accident. I have been asked multiple times, was she drunk? She was not drunk. No one else in the accident was drunk. I believe a state trooper came to my house September the 1st at 10:15 at night, told me that my daughter had been in a car accident. She was dead. I didn't have any details, so I had to wait to speak to an officer that actually worked her accident. When I did finally speak to him, I learned that my daughter was actually killed at like 4 or 5 during the evening, which I would have to go back and look at the police report. It's been a long time since I looked at the police report, but if I recall, that's correct. She was killed that evening, and he thinks she overcorrected and went into ongoing traffic. That's what the police told me when he finally called me and talked to me. To make a long story short, that changed my life. It changed my family's life. In a matter of seconds, we went from one thing to something totally different. So my life was different from that moment going forward, and nothing has been the same since. With that being said, this video is about trying to get through the holidays after a loss. I have done some research because I'm a nerd. I want to share my story, but I also want to give you some facts and some good things, some good takeaways when you do watch these videos. So I have done some research. I wrote some notes. So you might see me looking at my notes every now and then, but I did look up a couple of things to share with you along with sharing my story. For me, after my daughter was killed, I didn't think I could live after that. I didn't think I would make it. I didn't think I could go on. She was killed September the 1st. She was the oldest grandchild. She was my oldest daughter. My family was devastated. My sister's birthday, she was killed September the 1st. My sister's birthday was September the 3rd. Following that, my daughter's birthday was September the 25th. Then we had Thanksgiving in November. Then we had Christmas in December. Then my husband's birthday was in January. Then Eric's birthday was in February. Then it seemed like holiday after holiday, celebration after celebration. And I just thought in my head, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to live without my child? I didn't feel like I could live without my child. I just didn't feel like doing anything or going on. I just didn't feel like I could make it without her. Long story short, I did make it. That was in 2012. Now we're here in 2021. Not only have I lost my child, as I told you before, I've been a nurse. I was an ICU nurse for 12 to 15 years. So for years, I had helped families go through grief of their fathers, mothers, daughters. I had helped families through grief in an ICU setting. I also worked in a hospital during COVID. So I had seen, the COVID is after my daughter's death, but before she died, I had been with families through their losses. Being with the family through their loss and experiencing your own loss with someone that close is totally different. However, I do think my experiences helped me along the way. When it did happen to me, I think everything that I had seen, everything that I had assisted other people with, everything that I had experienced, it had a big impact on me when I lost my child. Even after I lost my child, we had the pandemic COVID. So I was back in the hospital again. So I've had the privilege of supporting families through COVID, inpatient, outpatient. It was stressful, but I still think that my experience helped me now this time going around, my experiences help me help other people when they experience the loss. When I do speak of grief, I speak of grief of loss of a family member, a child, separation from a loved one. You can have a pet that die or runs away, kids to leave home, major losses in life like divorces, retiring, changing jobs. Sometimes when you get diagnosed with a new disease or a new illness, that's a major grief process. If you get breast cancer or you become a diabetic, your life changes. So my experience with grief is with my daughter, but grief can root up in several different ways. With that being said, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in 1969 had a book called Death and Dying, and she discussed the stages of grief. Some of the stages of grief that you go through are denial, like, I can't believe this has happened to me. You're numb. You're like, what in the world? This can't be going on. Sometimes you can be numb. People, they kind of confuse that with you not caring. It's not that you don't care. You're just numb. You just don't, you don't know what to feel. You don't feel anything. It's shocking. You start to bargain. You start feeling like, what could I have done different? What should I have done? What could I have done? You start bargaining with God. Why is this happening to me? Then you go through anger. Sometimes you can be mad at the person. It can come off as being hostile, frustrated, anxiety. You can go through a state of depression where you feel hopelessness, overwhelming. You just depressed. You start dealing with the fact that you have had this loss and you're depressed about it. That's totally normal. And then you come to the part of acceptance where you're accepting the loss. This is what it is. It's not changing. However, know that you can repeat these stages of loss. It's not, you don't have to go through them in an order. It's no specific order. You can go through them and then go back. Sometimes you feel like you're better and then you're not. So you have a good day, then you have a bad day. That's totally normal. So those are things that you experience, and you experience them with all types of grief, but you might go back through some of those stages when you are grieving. Some of the ways to resolve some of these things that you're feeling is acknowledge and accept both the positive and the negative feelings. I mean, feel what you feel. And what I can say to people that are helping people through grief, allow people to feel what they feel. You don't get to tell people how long they get to grieve. You don't get to tell them it's time to get over it. You don't get to tell them it's been long enough. It's their feelings. They get to feel what they feel, and you don't get to tell them the time frame for that. So that's the worst thing you can do if you're supporting someone through grief. You need to support what they're feeling and support where they are. Those are their feelings. They're valid, and they get to feel that. So be there, be supportive. It's not for you to fix it. It's not for you to make it better. You just need to be supportive. And the people that are grieving, I can tell you this from personal experience too. You will lose friends, but you will also gain some. Sometimes the people that we think were going to be there for us the most, they're not the ones that support you. But the ones that you thought would not be there, those are the ones that end up supporting you the most through your grief. So, but allow people to help you. Allow people to help you. Ask for help. Sometimes the supporters, you don't need to ask if you can help. Just show up. Show up and be there. That's more important than anything. For the holidays, for holiday purposes, what I am going to say is be gentle on yourself. Protect yourself. If you want to go to the holidays, go to the holidays, but you might need to drive your own car. So if you feel like you need to leave, you can leave. That's okay if you feel like you need to leave. Like I said, allow other people to help you get through it. If you feel really good enough, you can donate things to other families. That's what I did. When my daughter died the first year, I went to the woman's shelter, and I live in DFW area. I went to the woman's shelter in Fort Worth. I sponsored a family that had women that were getting abused. I picked a family that had 3 children that were the ages of my children. I bought them Christmas. That's what I did the first year my daughter died. Also, the first year my daughter died for Thanksgiving, I didn't go to Thanksgiving. I stayed in my house. I didn't want to be around my family. I didn't want to, and I say my extended family. I didn't want to hear stories about her. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't take it. I wasn't in the mindset to be able to hear those things. I just couldn't deal with it. So for me, things change, and they might change. Your normal day to day, your normal way that you do your holidays, it might be different, and that's okay. And that's okay for you to change it. So do what works for you. Again, it's your loss, it's your grief. Do what works for you and do what helps you get through whatever you need to get through. So that year we did have Thanksgiving, but we had it at my house, whereas opposed to we would normally drive to another town with my family. I didn't do that during that time. Another thing, if you have a parent that's lost a child, if you're the friend of that family, sometimes the kids get left behind. If you have children, if you're supporting that person, make sure you check on the kids. Make sure that the kids are okay, because sometimes as a mom, when I lost my daughter, I didn't have anything to give my other kids. However, I'm going to call my friends that I had, I'm going to call them angels. And some of them were even my kids' past teachers. They came in. So it was other people looking out for my other two children. They would come, pick them up, take them to activities. One of my friends took my daughter to a concert, got her VIP. She just took her in and gave her time so she could have respites of her grief, so she could just really go enjoy herself. I couldn't do that as her mom. I wasn't in a headspace to do that. So if you're that person that you have the means and the ability to go pick up the other children, go pick up the other children, because as a parent, when you lose a child, you don't have anything to give anybody. So I appreciate and I am so grateful for the people in my life that did that for me. So they picked up Eric. I had people that would come just pick up Paige. They would pick them up on separate occasions. Sometimes they would pick them up together, just take them out and do things, and, just let them have a good time outside of seeing me be here, be home, be depressed, be crying, and me be upset, because that's what I was at that time. So if you're that person and you have the means to do that, do that. If you don't want to do the holidays, don't do the holidays. You might have to skip this year if it's your first year after your loss. You might want to skip it. You might not want to do it. If you can't bring yourself to do anything, don't do anything. However, if you can find it in your heart to, maybe if it's something as small as making a dinner and leaving a space at the table for that person, or saying a prayer for them, or maybe you can invite somebody over that doesn't have something to do for Thanksgiving, so you let them come over and eat. Sometimes it's hard to give away their belongings. If you have something that they have that you want to give to somebody special, those are things that you can do, or just keep it. This year is 9 years and my daughter was killed. This year, I just cleaned out her room. I just cleaned out her closet, and I had a blanket made out of her clothes. It's been 9 years. It took me 9 years to do that. So it might take you longer. My story is not your story. My grief is not your grief. So do what you have to do, how you have to do it to be okay. Another good thing that I read in the literature is you can write a letter to your loved one in remembrance of your loved one. You can do a blog on them, write a chat about them. If you do go to the family dinner, ask everyone to tell their favorite story about the loved one that they've had, because what I can tell you is that we feel like a part of us was lost, or have a part when you lose a loved one, you feel like you lose a piece of yourself. However, a big part of them is still with you. So as the loved one, it's the part that's still with you. It's a blessing to be able to share that with others, because if you don't share it, if you don't have the opportunity to share it, I feel like for me, that's how I create empowering life after loss. I feel like Ebony is forgotten. So for me, this is my way to remember my daughter and give back from the losses that I've had in hopes of helping someone else. And with all of that being said, I hope you have a happy holiday. I hope you have, and I'm not going to even say happy, I hope you can get through your holiday. I hope that you find ways to celebrate your holiday, or even be able to tolerate your holiday so you can have another one. And maybe one day somebody can look at you and say, if she made it through this, I can make it through this. Because as a young mother who had lost her oldest daughter, I had friends who had lost children, and I just wondered, how are they making it? How are they going on? How do they live? So I looked at them and wondered, could I ever get there? So if you can get through this holiday, It doesn't get easier, but it gets more tolerable. And it's the first ones are hard. They're all hard. But what I can say, as time goes on, it's different. I'm not going to even say better. I'm going to say it's different. And you learn to live your new normal, and you learn to live with your loss. It can be done. And I do want to add that if you're suicidal, if you feel like hurting yourself, I'm going to put the suicide hotline down in the comments. Call the suicide hotline. Call someone that you can trust. Call a friend that'll listen to you. So I don't want anyone to do anything to hurt themselves, because you've already suffered a big enough loss, and your family can't deal with another loss from you. With all that being said, I hope you have a good holiday.